Volatility and whiplash on Wall Street amid deepening economic uncertainty and growing global anxiety.
Yeah, U.S. markets opened deep in the red once again following Donald Trump's escalating trade war, but they have been fluctuating wildly for the past several hours. Here's a look at where things stand right now. The Dow down about 700 points or so. We actually saw it briefly in the green, up about 800 points at one point today. That was because of an unfounded rumor, but now obviously solidly in the red. And it's been red arrows all day for European stocks as well after Asian markets closed down sharply earlier. But the president is showing no signs of retreating, urging Americans not to be, quote, weak or stupid and panic.
And he's now threatening to impose new 50% tariffs on China following Beijing's retaliatory tariffs last week. The White House, meantime, is downplaying the growing economic concerns.
The market will find a bottom. It will be soon. And from there, we're going to have a bullish boom.
There doesn't have to be a recession. Who knows how the market is going to react in a day, in a week.
You need to reset the power of the United States of America and reset it against all our allies and our enemies alike.
It's a strategy to create a golden age in America for the American worker. That's his strategy.
A strategy with no details. All these advisors seem to be talking past each other.
Look at his
CNN,
face.
Richard
his head buried in his hands, literally.
And it's only Monday.
There doesn't have to be a recession, says the U.S. Treasury Secretary. He's right. There doesn't have to be a recession. The only problem is economic circumstances have now been put in place that most Wall Street economists of senior note say are likely to cause a recession. Goldman and others now say it's up to 60%. By the way, can we go back to the Dow Jones actual chart of the day, please? Just go back to that moment. Now, you see that green spike? That is where there was a rumor that the administration was going to pause by 90 days the tariffs. Well, it was just a rumor, and the market found it was a rumor and then promptly turned in the absolute opposite direction. But now let's forget rumors. Now we have a fact. Donald Trump says he's going to increase by 50% the tariffs on China tomorrow because they've had the temerity to retaliate with the 34% tit for tat that they did. So you want a trade war? This is what it looks like. And you remember Scott Bessent's words, there doesn't have to be a recession. By the way, all the rest, Howard Lutnick's comments, the economic advisors' comments, Navarro's comments, that's all just hyperbole. That's all just basically, it's going to be great, it's going to be marvelous, it's going to be fantastic, it's going to be wonderful, it's going to boom, But this is the reality. And at some point, ladies and gentlemen, at some point, there is so much disruption that the market simply can't take it. And jobs go, investment stops, the recession happens.
Let's not forget, Richard, that this is an administration that inherited a rather robust economy where we were seeing inflation continue to go down, though not fast enough. We got a strong jobs report. Obviously, that is backward looking. But to have administration officials, specifically Stephen Miller, go out on the airwaves this weekend and justify these tariffs as a need for a global reset because this administration inherited a recession or near depression is outright fabrication.
No, it's lies. Simple. Let's just call it what it is. It's lies. It's not true. The economy that Joe Biden handed over to Donald Trump was in fine fettle. Interest rates were coming down, not as fast as they'd like. Unemployment was low. Growth was medium to strong, trend growth. The market was at record highs. It's quite simple. These are facts you cannot ignore. These policies, and it's not just, by the way, the policy of this tariff trade, which is by far the worst. The immigration policy has now given cause for concern about inflation because workers won't be available. Companies are putting off decisions because they simply don't know the circumstance under which they will make. Now, is Donald Trump right in his policy prescription. Let's just, for the purpose of just my answer, let's assume it's a leap of faith. You have to say it is a leap of faith that he is right vis-a-vis all the conventional wisdom that says this is going to be bad for the growth. Now, if I tell you don't drive with blinkers on or don't drive with something over your eyes, you'd probably say it's not a good idea. But somebody says try it, you take your choice.
A leap of faith based on one man's convictions, right? Which he's held for decades.
But hang on. He held these convictions back in the 1980s. The global schemes and the global trading environment is very different to today than it was then. And it's not the policy that's wrong. You can even Ngozi at the WTO says that the US has legitimate concerns. It's the manufacture of the execution that's the difficulty. And the deeper this goes, the harder it's going to be to repair the damage. Simple as that.
No doubt. Richard Quest, thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard.
And just take a taste of what these White House and cabinet officials said on the Sunday shows and today, trying to defend what Trump is trying to do and trying to explain what he's trying to do.
I've seen some deals that are great, and President Trump is going to decide if they're great enough.
Listen, we've got 50 countries that are burning the phone lines into the White House up, and probably the president's cell phone as well.
There is no postponing. They are definitely going to stay in place for days and weeks.
So when you say to me, Ed, what do we want from them? We want fairness.
I mean, at the end of the day, the overriding theme is just trust Trump.
Yes, though I will say we are starting to see a little bit of a division even among Trump officials. Obviously, there's nobody that speaks for the Trump administration that is going to outright criticize the president's overall strategy here. But I think in addition to the officials that are saying, look, you got to just trust that he knows what he's doing. We have to give this time. This is ultimately going to end up in a good place in the medium to long term. We're seeing an emphasis on the countries that are wanting to negotiate, essentially officials that are coming out and saying, it's not the worst idea. If you're interested in negotiating, the time is now. I think those are two distinctly different views. You talked about two camps existing in the Trump world. There's the idea that what Trump is doing right now is going to eventually course correct on its own. And then there's a separate idea that these negotiations need to happen in order for that to happen. I'm not sure exactly where President Trump falls right now. I don't think that most people know, and that's obviously the key thing. And I think it's also why we should be watching Netanyahu's visit to the White House really closely. Does he come out of there having effectively negotiated and gotten himself a better deal?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's not just two camps existing in Trump world. Trump has said both things in different social media posts. You know, he'll say these tariffs are here to stay. We're going to reconfigure the U.S. economy. We're going to bring more manufacturing domestically. This is about a complete reset. But then in a different post, he'll say, look at all these countries coming to negotiate. My plan is working. So I think that's where the business leaders are saying, well, what can we trust when we don't quite know the plan, because it can't necessarily be both things. Are these tariffs a negotiating tool, which means they may be temporary and there will be pain, but it could pay off in the long term? Or are these tariffs about moving manufacturing into the U.S., which will be a long-term problem for a lot of these business leaders, and they don't necessarily want to hear that. I also think saying both allows some of these Republican leaders, it buys them time, because they can say, hey, this is just a negotiating tool. We're going to wait it out.
I've talked to a lot of those business executives, some of whom are in touch directly with the White House about what this is going to look like. And they're saying, hey, we would rather pay or pass on to consumers $20 million in tariffs than spend $5 billion to build a new factory in a country with whom we don't know what relations are going to look like in the next administration or under the next party's leadership. And they are very frustrated because during Trump's first term, where he was primarily targeting China, a lot of them moved their factories to Vietnam. And they're saying, hey, wait a second, we did this for you in 2019, and now Vietnam's getting hit with the 46% tariff. What are we supposed to do? We're just going to ride this out.
And, meantime, there's the optics of all this, right? Trump is always concerned about how he's viewed in the media and the like. And the message that they wanted to send, this was a decision by Trump and his team, is to tell folks about his golf game this weekend.
How was the golf tournament?
Very good, because I won. It's good to win. You heard I won, right? Did you back it up. You were there. I won.
And then on Saturday, as these tariffs were going out, they decided, the White House put out a statement saying that the president won his second round matchup of the Senior Club Championship today in Jupiter, Florida, and advances to the championship round tomorrow. You know, sometimes presidents, if they're in the middle of economic turmoil, maybe they would go to a factory or something or try to make their case publicly. Trump he's doing what he's doing.
You know, that does go hand in hand with a strategy. If there was a coherent strategy we all understood, that would fit with it. Having the president be completely unbothered, not going on TV to calm the markets, saying, no, the markets are going to figure out what I'm doing sooner or later. It's everything else that you were just talking about. He is going golfing while we are figuring out if this is worth investing in, if we're willing to plan for 4 years ahead or not. I don't think that is necessarily a bad look for what he's trying to do. The lack of clarity is on what he's trying to do.